My father looked me straight in the eyes and said, "That money belongs to this family now. You need to hand it over." And my stepmother smiled, like she had already won. But what they didn't know was, my mother had already destroyed their plan. 18 months before she died. My name is Emma, and I'm 25 years old. But this story really began when I was just 18, the year my mother started dying. Stage 4 cancer. 2 years. That's how long she fought. 2 years of hospitals, endless chemo, and nights that felt like they would never end. And me, I was there for all of it. Every appointment. Every breakdown. Every single moment when the pain got so bad. She would grab my hand so tightly, like I was the only thing keeping her here. My father was there too, at least in the beginning. But then, he changed. He started coming home late, stopped answering calls, made excuses that didn't make sense. And then one day, I found out the truth. There was another woman. Her name was Clara. She worked with him. And apparently, she had no problem being with a man whose wife was slowly dying. The worst part, my mother knew. She knew everything. And she still said nothing. Not to him, not to her. I remember asking her once, "Why don't you say something?" She just gave me this soft, tired smile and said, "I don't have the strength to fight to battles, Emma." So, she chose her fight. And that fight was staying alive for as long as she could. For me. 3 weeks before she passed, she called me into her room. My dad wasn't home, it was just us. She held my hand, gently this time, and there was something in her eyes, something calm, certain. I've taken care of everything." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She shook her head slightly. "Trust Mr. Harmon. No matter what happens, you'll be safe." I didn't ask more, I couldn't. I just sat there, crying, holding on to her hand, wishing time would just stop. But it didn't. Single quotes. One quiet morning, she was gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. And after that, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt empty, like something important had been ripped out of it. My father grieved, or at least, he looked like he did. He said the right things, acted the right way in front of people. But less than a year later, Clara moved in, into the same house my mother had built with her own hands. And then, 8 months after that, they got married. I wasn't even properly invited. Just a last-minute call, 3 days before. But I still went, not for them. For my mother, because she raised me to carry myself with dignity, even when the people around me didn't deserve it. Clara smiled at me the entire day, like we were friends, like she hadn't taken anything from me, and I smiled back. Because I had learned how to hide pain from the best. For a while, things were tense, but manageable. I moved into my own apartment, focused on work, visited less, kept things polite, distant. But every time I went back, something was missing. My mother's photos, gone. Her garden, destroyed. Replaced with cold stone. It was like she was being erased, piece by piece. And I said nothing, I just carried it quietly. Until one night, everything changed. It was a random evening in March. My dad called, asked me to come over for dinner, said he missed me. And for a moment, I believed him. I thought maybe, just maybe, things could be fixed. So I went. Sat at that table, the one that no longer felt like mine. And halfway through dinner, Clara put down her fork, looked straight at me, and said, "I think it's time you gave us your inheritance." Just like that. Calm, cold, planned. She said the family needed it. That $400,000 was just sitting there, doing nothing. And then, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You're being selfish." Selfish. In my mother's house. At my mother's table, wearing jewelry that probably belonged to her. I turned to my father, waiting, hoping he would say something, anything. But he didn't. He just folded his hands and said, "Clara is your family now, Emma. Your mom would have wanted you to take care of us." And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It froze. I didn't argue, didn't cry. I just nodded, calmly, said I needed time to think, finished dinner like everything was normal. And the next morning, I made one call to Mr. Harmon. And what he told me next wasn't just an answer, it was a plan. A plan my mother had put in place long before she died. The next morning, I drove to Mr. Harmon's office. I didn't take anything with me. No documents, no expectations. Just this heavy feeling in my chest. The same one I'd been carrying since the day my mom died. His office hadn't changed, dark wooden shelves, the faint smell of old paper, and that same framed picture of a quiet mountain lake behind his desk. For a second, it felt like I had stepped back into my childhood, back to a time when things were still normal. He stood up as I walked in, shook my hand firmly, the kind of handshake that makes you feel steady. Like no matter how bad things are, someone is in control. "Emma," he said gently, "I've been expecting you." That sentence alone made my heart skip. He sat down, opened a thick folder, and slid a sealed envelope across the desk toward me. "My mother," I whispered. He nodded. "She prepared this 18 months before she passed." 18 months. That means while she was still fighting for her life, she was also preparing for this. For them, for me. He leaned back slightly and added, "She told me she hoped she was wrong about what might happen after she was gone. But she wanted to be ready either way." My hands were shaking when I picked up the envelope. My name was written on it, in her handwriting. I hadn't seen it in over 2 years. And suddenly, it all came rushing back. Birthday cards, little notes in my lunchbox. Permission slips she used to sign. I had to press my lips together just to stop myself from breaking down right there. Mr. Harmon didn't say anything. He just gave me space. He knew. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter, 4 pages. Front and back, every word written in that same careful, familiar handwriting. I started reading, and within seconds, I realized something. My mother knew. Not just about Clara. Not just about my father. It was about me. She wrote about the nights we stayed up studying together. The way I used to bring her tea when she was sick, even before she got really sick. She wrote about a road trip we took when I was 16, when she let me drive for the last 2 hours, even though I barely knew what I was doing. She said she pretended to stay calm the entire time. I laughed through my tears reading that part. And then, the final lines. The ones I will never forget. "You've always taken care of everyone else before yourself. I need you to stop doing that now. Use this money to build the life you deserve. Travel somewhere that scares you. Finish the life you paused for me. Fall in love with a place, a dream, or a person. And don't apologize for it." And then she signed it. Not Mom, just Caroline. Like she was speaking to me not as a child, but as a woman. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sat there and cried in a way I hadn't allowed myself to cry since her funeral. Deep, uncontrolled. The kind of crying that comes from years of holding everything inside. Mr. Harmon quietly placed a box of tissues next to me and said nothing, which somehow meant everything. That evening, I drove to my father's house. Not to argue, not to explain, not to fight, just to end it. I walked in calmly, placed an envelope on the kitchen counter, addressed to both of them. My father opened it, started reading. Clara stood right beside him, watching, waiting. And I watched his face. I watched the exact moment it hit him. The moment he realized my mother had already seen through everything. That while she was dying, she had outplayed him completely. His jaw tightened, his eyes filled up, and then, for the first time in my entire life, I saw my father cry. Not pretend, not perform. Actually cry. I don't know if it was guilt, or regret, or just the realization that he had lost control. But he broke. Clara put her hand on his back, like she was trying to hold the situation together. But it was already over. I didn't say a word. I picked up my bag, turned around, and walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. I never went back to that house again. Not once, not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even for closure. Because the truth is, I already had it. My mother gave it to me. In that letter, in that plan, in the way she protected me, even when she was the one who needed protecting the most. The trust stayed exactly where it was. Untouched, safe. And for the first time in years, I started thinking about my life again. Not survival, not grief, not looking back, but forward. I went back and finished the degree I had paused for her. And it wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to quit. Days where everything reminded me of her. But every time I felt like giving up, I remembered her words. Finish the life you paused for me. So I did. And then, I did something that would have terrified the old me. I booked a ticket one way to Portugal, a place my mom had always dreamed of visiting, but never got the chance. I remember standing at the airport, holding my passport, feeling something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Freedom. Not just from my father, not just from Clara, but from the version of myself that only knew how to hold pain quietly. Portugal was beautiful. But more than that, it felt like healing. Every street I walked, every ocean view I stood in front of, felt like I was living a life she had imagined for me. And slowly, the grief changed. It didn't disappear, it never does. But it softened. It turned into something else, something warmer, something that didn't just remind me of loss, but of love. Real love. The kind that plans for your future, even when there's no future left for itself. And that's when I finally understood something. My mother didn't just leave me money. She left me proof. Proof that she knew me. That she believed in me. That she trusted me to build something better. Even when everything around me was falling apart. She didn't fight loudly. She didn't create drama. She didn't beg or argue or expose anyone. She fought quietly, smartly, completely. And in the end, she won. Because when Clara sat there, demanding the inheritance my mother left me, she didn't realize something. My mother had already answered her. A long time ago. The money was never the real inheritance. The real inheritance was the fact that even while she was dying, my mother made sure no one could ever take my future away from me. Honestly, if I were in that situation, I don't think I would have handled it with that much strength. Walking away without a fight, and still winning, that takes a different kind of power. What would you have done? Would you have confronted them, or walked away like Emma did?